Why does it seem that the people who speak the least often command the most attention? Not because they're mysterious by force, or because they're playing some social game, but because restraint creates gravity. In a world saturated with opinions, explanations, justifications, and constant self-disclosure, silence has become rare. And rarity attracts. Think about the last conversation where someone talked too much. Not with enthusiasm, but with urgency. Filling every pause. Explaining themselves repeatedly. Repeating the same point in different words, hoping it lands harder the next time. What did it make you feel? Probably not impressed. More likely overwhelmed, bored, or subconsciously pushed away. Excessive talking doesn't create connection, it creates noise. And noise weakens presence. Now contrast that with someone who speaks slowly, deliberately, and only when they have something meaningful to add. They don't rush to respond. They let pauses exist. When they do speak, people lean in. That's not charisma by chance. That's psychological space at work. Talking less doesn't mean being silent out of fear or insecurity. It means choosing words instead of spilling them. It means understanding that your value is not measured by how much air you occupy, but by the weight of what you say when you do speak. Presence grows in the gaps. Here's a powerful example. Imagine two people in a meeting. One speaks constantly, jumping in to add something to every topic, even when it's repetitive. The other listens carefully, asks one sharp question, and offers one clear insight. Weeks later, who do you remember? Almost always the second person. Not because they said more, but because they made space for meaning. The same applies to attraction, influence, and respect. When you talk less, you allow others to project, to wonder, to engage. You stop chasing attention and instead invite it. Silence creates contrast. And contrast creates interest. There's also a deeper layer most people miss. Overtalking is often driven by anxiety, the fear of being misunderstood, ignored, or forgotten. Talking becomes a defense mechanism. But the paradox is brutal. The more you try to be seen through noise, the less visible you become. Calm, measured speech signals confidence. It tells the room, I don't need to convince you of my worth. And that signal is magnetic. You may have noticed this in social situations. The person who dominates the conversation often leaves feeling oddly disconnected. Meanwhile, the one who listened more than they spoke leaves others feeling heard. And people are naturally drawn to those who make them feel understood. Talking less also sharpens your awareness. When you're not busy preparing your next sentence, you're actually present. You catch subtleties, tone, body language, hesitation. That awareness allows you to respond with precision instead of reflex. Precision is attractive. Reflex is forgettable. If this idea already challenges the way you communicate, pause for a second. Ask yourself honestly, where in your life are you talking to fill space instead of to add value? That awareness alone can shift how others perceive you. If you're finding value in this perspective, take a moment to support the channel. Subscribe and leave a like. It helps keep this kind of thoughtful, depth-focused content alive and reaching the people who need it. There's another reason talking less attracts more, and it's even more subtle. It gives people room to step toward you. Attraction, whether social, emotional, or even professional, is not built by chasing. It's built by allowing space. When you constantly explain yourself, justify your choices, or narrate every thought, you leave no space for curiosity. And curiosity is the doorway to attraction. Think about this in relationships. Have you ever met someone who reveals everything about themselves immediately? Their plans, their fears, their past wounds, their expectations. On paper, that looks like openness. In practice, it often feels overwhelming. There's no discovery, no unfolding. Everything is handed over before interest has time to grow. Now compare that to someone who shares gradually. Who answers honestly but doesn't overshare? Who leaves some thoughts unspoken? That person feels intriguing, grounded, self-contained. You want to know more, not because they're hiding, but because they're not desperate to be known. Talking less creates emotional pacing. And pacing builds value. This principle applies everywhere. In leadership, for example. The leaders who talk non-stop tend to lose authority, even if they're intelligent. Authority grows when words are used intentionally. When silence communicates confidence. When decisions aren't over-explained. People trust clarity more than chatter. There's a simple but powerful shift that happens when you talk less. You stop leaking energy. Every unnecessary word costs attention, emotional energy, and presence. When you conserve that energy, people feel it. Your calm becomes contagious. Your stillness becomes noticeable. Suddenly, you're not competing for attention, you're anchoring the room. Let's look at a very human example. Imagine you're telling a story. One person interrupts themselves constantly, adds side details, over-explains what they mean, checks if everyone understands. Another person tells the same story cleanly, pauses at the right moments, and stops when the point is made. Which one holds you? The second. Because trust grows when someone trusts their own words enough not to decorate them endlessly. Talking less also protects you from regret. Many people wish they hadn't said something, not because it was untrue, but because it was unnecessary. Silence gives you time to filter. To ask, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said now? Does it need to be said by me? That filter alone elevates how others experience you. And here's an uncomfortable truth: people who talk too much often feel unseen. They're speaking to be acknowledged. But acknowledgement doesn't come from volume. It comes from resonance. When you speak less, what you say resonates more deeply. It lands instead of dispersing. There's also a psychological effect at play. When you talk less, others fill the silence. They reveal more about themselves. They project assumptions, emotions, intentions. This gives you insight without effort. Silence becomes information. And information is power, quiet power. This doesn't mean becoming cold, distant, or withdrawn. It means becoming intentional. Warmth doesn't require excess words. Connection doesn't require constant explanation. Often, a well-timed pause communicates more care than a long speech ever could. If this resonates with you, this is a good moment to support the channel. Leave a like and subscribe. It helps this message reach people who are ready to shift how they show up in conversations, relationships, and life. Pause for a moment and reflect. Where could saying less help you attract more respect, more connection, or more peace? Sit with that question. When you fully integrate the habit of talking less, the change isn't just external, it's internal. You begin to experience life differently. You're no longer reacting in real time to everything around you. You're responding from awareness. And that shift alone transforms how people experience you. One of the most overlooked benefits of speaking less is that it builds self-trust. When you stop explaining yourself unnecessarily, you send a message, both to others and to yourself, that you don't need approval to exist. You don't need to convince people of your intentions, your value, or your direction. This quiet self-assurance is deeply attractive because it's rare. Most people are constantly trying to justify themselves. The person who doesn't feel grounded, stable, and confident without arrogance. Think about confidence. True confidence is calm. It doesn't rush. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't dominate conversations. It allows silence because it's not afraid of being forgotten. And when silence is comfortable, people feel safe in your presence. Safety, whether emotional or psychological, is one of the strongest attractors there is. There's also a practical shift that happens. When you talk less, you start listening more, and not just to others, but to yourself. You notice when you're about to speak out of habit rather than purpose. You catch yourself before over-explaining. You learn to stop mid-sentence if what you're saying no longer feels necessary. That restraint sharpens your communication. Your words become clean, direct, honest, and people feel the difference immediately. This is especially powerful in moments of tension or conflict. The person who stays calm and speaks minimally often holds the upper hand, not through manipulation, but through clarity. Silence in these moments isn't weakness. It's composure. It creates space for emotions to settle, for truth to emerge, for respect to remain intact. And here's the deeper truth: talking less doesn't make you smaller. It makes you denser. More concentrated. Your presence carries more weight because it's not diluted by excess words. People begin to check themselves when speaking to you. They listen more closely. They feel heard. And feeling heard makes people drawn to you. This doesn't mean you never express yourself. It means you choose when and how. You speak when there's something meaningful to offer, not when silence feels uncomfortable. And over time, silence stops feeling uncomfortable at all. It starts feeling powerful. If this message has shifted how you see communication, take a moment now to support the channel. Subscribe and leave a like. It helps keep thoughtful, grounded conversations alive in a world that's increasingly loud. So the next time you feel the urge to fill the space, pause. Let silence breathe. Notice what happens. Watch how people lean in instead of away. Watch how your energy changes. Watch how attraction grows, not because you tried harder, but because you trusted less to be more. Talking less isn't about holding back. It's about allowing depth to speak for itself.